Kimizuki hopes to join the Moon Demon Company to secure her admission, but he is disheartened by the prospect of losing marks for leaving practice midway. Yu encourages Kimizuki not to give up so easily. This support helps Kimizuki regain his enthusiasm, and they both become friends. Later on, there's a meeting of all the senior army officers at the army headquarters. Giran dozes off during the meeting, and when an officer asks him to pay attention, Giran wakes up and starts heading out. The other officers try to stop him, but Giran says he's not needed since the Hiragi family is running the Japanese Imperial Demon Army. With that, Giran leaves the room. Outside, Yu confronts him, upset about not getting the cursed weapon. Giran figures that if Yu sticks around too long, the Hiragi family might notice him, so he agrees to give Yu the weapon. The next day in class, Yu quickly asks Giran for the cursed weapon, and Kimizuki jumps in, asking for it too. Giran asks if they've managed to create a resistance against the demon's spell. His assistant chimes in, saying they're all doing pretty well, but Yuichi has the best ability to withstand the demon. Knowing this, Giran immediately takes out his cursed sword and plunges it into the ground. The sword's cursed powers spread throughout the entire room, causing all the students to fall unconscious except for Yuichi, Yu, and Kimizuki, who managed to withstand the power. When Giran draws his sword, only those four remain standing and fully conscious. Giran then leads them to an underground facility filled with terrifying statues of demons. This is where the army keeps its most powerful and rare Black Demon series weapons. Giran invites them to choose a weapon, explaining that touching it will begin the contract ceremony. Yu, excitedly, chooses a Black Demon sword. As soon as he touches it, he begins to have a dream. In the dream, the demon tries to entice Yu by taking the form of Mika. But, just like before, Yu doesn't listen. The demon drops the act and reveals its true form. It then transforms into Yu's family members and starts cursing him, accusing him of forgetting about avenging their deaths and living happily with his new friends. Yu tells the demon to stop the drama and just give him the power. Reluctantly, the demon Ajiromaru agrees and warns Yu that 10% of him is not human, due to experiments conducted by humans, advising him not to trust them. Yu doesn't quite grasp the meaning of these words, but the contract is made. Yu regains consciousness and sees that Kimizuki has already made a contract with a demon, but Yuichi is still dreaming. In the dream, the demon takes the form of Yuichi's sister and accuses him of not wanting to avenge her death, calling him a coward who is happy his own life was spared that day. Even when the demon attacks him, Yuichi does not retaliate. This allows the demon to take control of Yuichi's body. Seeing this, Giran immediately orders Yu and Kimizuki to kill Yuichi, explaining that once someone is under the demon's control, it's impossible to return to being human. Reluctantly, Yu and Kimizuki start fighting Yuichi, but they can't bring themselves to kill him. Instead, they try to bring him back to his senses. However, the demon refuses to release Yuichi and aims an arrow at Yu. Yu drops his sword and stands unarmed in front of Yuichi, pleading with him to come back to his senses. Giran also urges Yuichi to snap out of it. Hearing their words, Yuichi finally breaks free from the demon's control and, crying like a baby, hugs Yu. After the three of them receive their weapons, Giran informs them that vampires are preparing to attack the city of Shinjuku, so they will be sent there to investigate. The next day, Yu boards a train to Shinjuku with Shirnoa. As the train departs, they exit through the main gate of Shinjuku City and run into Yuichi and Kimizuki. Soon, they hear Mitsuba's voice arguing with Giran about why Shirnoa was made the team leader instead of her. When Mitsuba spots Shirnoa, she immediately starts fighting with her. Seeing the commotion, Giran steps in calmly to stop the argument and explains that Mitsuba is the fifth member of their team. He emphasizes that they will be working together as a team of 5 and no one should attempt to face the vampires alone. Giran gives them their first mission, to travel to Ryukyu and rescue people imprisoned by the vampires there. They set off on their mission, and along the way, they see a girl fleeing from a horseman. Yu wants to help her, but Mitsuba stops him, suspecting it might be a vampire trick. Despite Mitsuba's warnings, Yu can't stand to see the girl in danger and rushes to her aid. He arrives just in time to save her from a horseman's attack. Mitsuba then takes down the horseman. As soon as the horseman falls, 3 vampires appear and surround Yu. To fight the vampires, Yu uses the power of his sword, causing black tattoos to form on his face. He attacks the vampires with the sword, and the power of his strike scares them so much. They quickly retreat. Later, Mitsuba scolds you for not listening to her, pointing out that if the vampires had been better armed, they could have all been killed. Yu apologizes for putting their lives at risk but stands by his decision to help the girl. Mitsuba's resentment toward Yu grows because she had once disobeyed orders herself, leading to the death of all her companions. Since then, she has been strict about following orders. They then ask the girl where the other captives are. She tells them that the vampires have imprisoned them in a nearby underground metro station and warns that there are 7 vampires there. With the information in hand, they plan their strategy and head to the underground metro station. Inside, they find many domesticated humans but focus on searching for the vampires. They spot a vampire, and Yu quickly attacks and kills it. Mitsuba reprimands him for acting alone, but Yu soon saves her from another vampire's attack and kills that one with a single strike. Mitsuba is astonished by his strength. They continue exploring the station for the remaining vampires. They eventually find the rest of the vampires, but a 6th vampire suddenly grabs Mitsuba from behind. It becomes clear that the girl they met earlier had been forced by the vampires to provide false information. Mitsuba urges her friends to leave her behind and escape, but they refuse to abandon her and instead continue fighting the vampires. Yu manages to kill the vampire holding Mitsuba and frees her. They then defeat the remaining vampires and rescue all the prisoners. Later, Mitsuba learns about Yu's past from Shinoa. Feeling remorseful for her previous behavior, she approaches Yu to apologize. However, she becomes too embarrassed and ends up leaving without saying anything. Afterward, they come across a car on the roadside. Kimazuki, using his sharp mind, repairs it. Yu, excited like any young man would be, takes the wheel as soon as Kimazuki steps away. He drives the car recklessly and crashes it into a nearby pole. Then they all pile into the car and head toward Shinjuku. As they approach the city, they hear strange sounds and soon spot a noble vampire and 13 progenitor Crowley approaching them. They attempt to run Crowley over with the car, but he effortlessly stops it with one hand and throws it on them. Realizing Crowley's immense power, they start strategizing their approach to fight him. Suddenly, Crowley appears behind Shinoa. Yu quickly intervenes and saves her from Crowley's attack. Then 2 of Crowley's servants arrive and inform him that Ferret is waiting for him on the battlefield. Crowley decides to leave, but not before Yu, brimming with arrogance, challenges him to a fight. Crowley suddenly appears behind Yu, catching him off guard, but ultimately decides to leave without killing them. In this way, the 5 of them narrowly escape with their lives. Yu, frustrated by feeling so weak despite their powerful weapons, heads with the team toward the battlefield in Shinjuku. When they arrive, they see vampire helicopters attacking the city. A missile from one of the helicopters forces them to jump out of the way to save themselves. As the vampire army descends from the helicopter, a fierce battle between the demon army and the vampires erupts. Yuichi quickly shoots an arrow and takes down the enemy helicopter, while the rest of the team uses their cursed weapons to fight the vampires. Impressed by their bravery, Corporal Nagai from the Shinjuku security unit approaches them. After learning they are from the Moon Demon Company, he informs them that the vampires have breached a section of the city's western wall and are infiltrating through there. The demon army won't be able to hold that position for long, so Nagai starts leading them to that part of the city. Meanwhile, Girin surveys the battlefield from a distance and spots Ferret, the commander of the vampire army, with Mika by his side. Girin's team members soon arrive, and he inquires about Yu. Shigeru informs him that Yu and his team have entered Shinjuku. With this information, Girin sets off with his team to confront Ferret. Aware of Girin's approach, Ferret prepares for the encounter. Mika, meanwhile, watches other vampires happily feeding on human blood and is advised by Ferret to join them. However, Mika refuses to drink human blood. This refusal reminds him of an event from 4 years ago when Krull offered him a human to feed on, but he declined. Despite Krull's repeated attempts to convince him, Mika remained steadfast. Eventually, Krull offered him her own blood, and upon seeing it, Mika lost control and began drinking from her. Since that day, Mika has only consumed Krull's blood and refuses to feed on any human blood. Elsewhere, as Yu and his companions head toward a battlefield, Shinoa informs them about power-enhancing pills. Each pill boosts their strength by 1.5 times, but taking more than one can be fatal, and the effect lasts only 15 minutes. So they need to use the pills strategically. Suddenly, an enemy helicopter attacks their truck, injuring Nagai badly. Yu tries to help him out of the truck, but the helicopter fires a missile, causing the ground to crack and sending them all falling underground. During the chaos, a falling stone separates Shinoa and you from the rest of the group, leading them to take different paths. You and Shinoa take Nagai to the army hospital for treatment. Afterward, they head toward the battlefield. Shinoa informs you that Guren is fighting the main vampire army with his team and needs their help. On the way, you overhear some soldiers discussing the Moon Demon Company and learns that his other 3 companions are in danger. Despite Shinoa's urging to continue toward the battlefield to assist Guren, he decides to change course and go back to help his friends. When you arrives, he finds his companions surrounded by vampires and exhausted from the fight. He quickly saves Kimizuki from a vampire attack, and with Shinoa's help, they defeat the remaining vampires. Once they've ensured their companions are safe, they head back toward the battlefield. Meanwhile, a fierce battle rages between the vampires and soldiers on the battlefield. Guren and his companions are engaged in a fight with the main vampire fighter. Ferret instructs Mika to join him in taking down Guren, but Mika believes he can handle Guren on his own. The two begin their battle. Guren relies on his companion's help as he fights Mika. Just as Guren is about to deliver a final blow, Ferret intervenes, stopping the attack and kicking Guren hard. The blow injures Guren severely, making him realize just how powerful Ferret is. He considers using a second power-boosting pill despite the risk, but is stopped by Mika, who then thrusts his sword into Guren's chest. At that moment, Yu arrives and attacks Mika, driving his sword into Mika's chest. However, upon realizing that Mika is the vampire he's fighting, Yu hesitates and doesn't activate the sword's curse, allowing Mika to escape and save his life. Guren and his friends ask Yu why he didn't kill the vampire. Yu reveals that the vampire is his family member Mika. This revelation creates a poignant moment between Yu and Mika, who look at each other like long-lost brothers. Ferret seizes the opportunity to provoke Mika, claiming that humans have deceived Yu and are exploiting him. Mika, feeling betrayed, decides to separate Yu from the humans. Crowley then arrives, and seeing the increasing number of noble vampires, Guren orders everyone to retreat. Yu is reluctant to leave Mika, but his friends convince him to go. As they try to escape, Ferret blocks their path and engages Yu in a fight, pulling him away from the group. Guren steps in to help Yu but struggles against Ferret's overwhelming power and is badly beaten. Just as Ferret is about to drink Yu's blood, Mika intervenes and attacks Ferret, forcing him to back off. Ferret decides to leave them alone. Mika carries Yu away from the battlefield, trying to convince him that humans are using him for their own gain. However, Yu refuses to listen and is determined to help his friends, who are being tormented by vampires. As Yu sees Crowley feeding on Shinoa's blood with pleasure, tears stream down Shinoa's face, causing Yu to lose control. His eyes turn red with rage, and he encounters Asarumaru in a dream. Asarumaru expresses fear of the demon inside Yu, revealing that it will be unleashed today. In the dream, fairies begin to fly in the glowing sky, blowing golden horns. As this happens, the demon within Yu starts to emerge. Yu screams in agony, and black smoke envelopes him as he transforms into a half-formed demon. Seeing Yu's transformation, Crowley steps in to fight him, but is taken aback by the damage caused by Yu's single attacks. Unable to withstand Yu's power, Crowley retreats and joins Ferret. Meanwhile, Yu notices Shinoa nearby. Terrified, Shinoa tries to escape, but Yu quickly approaches and attacks with his sword. Mika intervenes, taking the blow to prevent Yu from becoming a killer. Guren urges Shinoa to help bring Yu back to his senses. She holds Yu and repeatedly tells him to snap out of it. As Yu is about to strike Shinoa, his black wings fade, and he regains control. At that moment, a sniper hidden on a rooftop targets Ferret and Crowley, freeing Guren from their grip. The Japanese Imperial Demon Army then surrounds the vampires from all sides, effectively saving Yu, Guren, and the rest of their companions from the vampires' clutches. Later, Shinoa tries to enter the army's restricted area in search of Guren. The guards stop her, so she asks what happens in this facility. One of the guards explains that it's where vampires are imprisoned and studied to discover their weaknesses. Shinoa then shows the guards the symbol of her family. Recognizing her as a member of the Hiragi family, they allow her inside. Once there, Shinoa sees several prison cells containing vampires. She hears a scream coming from behind one of the doors and, upon investigating, finds scientists conducting research inside. Shinoa finds Guren in a room and tells him that Yu has been unconscious for the past 5 days. She blames Guren for this, as he instructed her to give Yu the special pills. Guren responds by explaining that humans are struggling to survive in a world plagued by horsemen and vampires. He emphasizes that sacrifices, like the one Shinoa's sister Mihiru Haragi made to bring the Infernal Arm's power into the world, are necessary for survival. With this, Guren sends Shinoa out. 7 days later, Yu wakes up and sees Yoichi sitting beside him. Overjoyed to see Yu conscious, Yoichi rushes out to inform the others. Yu, upon remembering that Mika is still alive, sheds tears of joy. Shinoa then comes to see him and reports that, after Yu fainted, backup arrived and captured many vampires. However, most of the noble vampires managed to escape. When Yu asks about Mika, Shinoa informs him that the vampires took Mika with them. Yu's other friends soon arrive to see him, and he thanks them warmly, feeling grateful for their support. However, his main focus is on rescuing Mika from the vampires as soon as possible. Meanwhile, Mika and his vampire allies discuss the recent battle. One vampire expresses concern about Yu's uncontrollable transformation into a demon, noting that it worries the Progenitor Council. The council suspects that humans are researching the forbidden magic Seraph of the End, which could potentially destroy the world. Mika leaves the room, contemplating how he can save Yu from the humans. At the same time, Yu is determined to find a way to rescue Mika from the vampires. Will these two ever be able to meet again? And if they are able to, then will Mika be able to become a human again? Or will you have to become a vampire? Also, what kind of research are humans doing which can pose a threat to the entire world? And will they be able to regain their control over this world full of vampires through this research? If you want to know the answers to these questions, please share and like this video. We will make the next part soon. Thanks for watching the video.